Namaste. Hello and welcome to the reading of Agastya, Purpose of Life from the discourses of Agasthyar Vadipadu. Today, June 8th, marks the birth anniversary of Gajarath Swamigal. What better way to honor him than to begin today's session with the rendition of a hymn to Sage Agastya composed by him. The short verse encapsulates the essence of Sage Agastya and his work. And I'm going to read just the English translation. Om. The one who is manifest as the foremost in the letter A. The sage who is the highest among the living beings manifested in the letter U. Dispelling the illusion of life as the letter Ma, and thus blessing us, that sacred feet of Agastya, let us touch every day. So in this, Gajarath Swamigal has used the primordial sound of Om and the letters A, U, and Ma, or the sounds A, U, and Ma, which form the primordial sound, to talk about and praise and explain about Sage Agastya and his work. So going forward, in every session, we will be reading this before we begin. So today's topic is life, and Sister Sumati will begin reading now.
Om Agasteshwaraya Namaha. Life. On a New Year day, Sage Agastya said, New Year means a year that is born anew. If something must be perceived as new, there should be something old too. That is what we call the past, or time that has passed. Past is represented for each one of you individually based on the time each one of you have lived since birth. If we think about how your life has been so far, it is based on situations unique to each one of you.
So here, Sage Agastya is basically telling us that what we consider as past is simply the events and the situations that we have already gone through, and that it is different for each one of us. It's only our past we can consider as only beginning from the time we were born or taken rebirth on this earth. So he says, for each one of you, it is different. It is based on your own unique conditions and what has happened in your life so far. So when we talk about past in the context of the society, then we have history and we have other literature which talks about the past of the world, the earth. But the past, as far as we are concerned, is connected only with our own unique life situations. Go ahead, sister.
We may consider the life that has been lived so far as either good or bad. There may be some truth to this. However, one's life cannot be seen as completely good or bad. It is always a combination of both. This is the inherent truth of life. Just as thorns and flowers are present in a basket of flowers, how much happiness or sadness one has experienced depends on what has transpired so far.
So here, Appa is saying, each one of us, when we look back on the past, we look at it and reflect on it, or we talk about it in terms of good or bad. Then he says, there may be some truth to this, because he is talking from a higher level. If you look at a life or creation as a whole, then from a higher level, there is really no good or bad, because everything just is. It's just experience, whether it's an experience that causes pain or whether it's an experience that causes happiness or joy or just a neutral feeling. It is just happening. And in a higher plane, when you progress in spiritual path, you become a witness. So when you are in that state, no matter what happens, it is nothing that is personalized. So basically, he's also, in this one sentence, he's saying, start looking at life as a witness. If something is bothering you, if something is hurting you, try to disassociate yourself from that. And how can you do that? We must remember that all the pain that is, or sorrow, or anything that is caused in our life is because of identification, the concept of I, me. When we, the soul, without realizing the divinity that we are, start identifying ourselves with the form, with the name, and everything that happens to the physical and mental body here, then we will undergo suffering or joy. So Appa's indirectly telling us, stay far remote, progress in your spiritual life, become a witness to what is happening in your life. So when something happens, we start looking at, why is this happening? What could be the cause? And as Sri Yukteswar, who is Paramahamsa Yogananda's guru, a great guru, always said, if somebody said something to him, he always reflected, is there some truth to this? So if a great guru can say that, is there some truth to this? Let me examine myself and see if there's something I need to correct. Then all of us can do the same thing. We can all reflect on what we are, understand what somebody is saying, and say, maybe if there is something that is wrong, then let us change. But what happens normally? The moment somebody says something, our ego gets hurt, and then we react. And when we react, and if we react in a negative way, what is happening? We are creating more suffering for the future by our negative actions. So, in a very selfish way, spiritually selfish is what I call this. Let us start examining what is happening in our life. And when something happens that is not a very a nice experience, let us reflect and see whether we can change ourselves. And let us see how we react to that in terms of our words and actions, so that we do not create more karma, and thus we make our future a better place to be. So then he says, life cannot be seen as completely good or bad, which is also true. It's always a combination. There is not one single person who is born in this earth who can say, I've had only happiness all my life. It is impossible, because good and bad, and joy and sorrow, they're all opposites in duality. They're the different sides of the same coin, which means the moment you're born into this world, which is when you become part of this created world, then you are subject to that duality. So he says, this is the inherent truth of life. So when we know that this is the inherent truth of life, that life is full of joy and sorrow, it's part of life, then we begin to understand as spiritual aspirants how to manage that, how to look at it, how to understand it, and how to move forward. Then he says, just as thorns and flowers are present in the basket of flowers, how much happiness or sadness one has experienced depends on what has transpired so far. So, depending on what has happened, we consider it as, oh, my life has been joyful, or we say it's been sorrowful. But let us step away from those two things and start thinking about, what can I do to change this for the future? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hence, it is necessary to accept the suffering and the happiness that the new year brings and experience both with a smile. Some people separate the neem leaves from the jaggery and eat it, thinking that they do not want pain, only pleasure, and want only a sweet life. What do you feel when you reflect deeply on all this? Life is not something that will go in only one direction, only the direction we want. So then, what is life? Where does one find happiness? Why does sorrow occur? We must clearly understand all this.
Here, Appa is saying, it was actually Indian New Year. In India, we celebrate New Year in months of April, and depending on which region we are, different months. And so one of the things that they do in Karnataka, the place that I come from, is they give people sweet and sour together to eat on that day. So they give jaggery, which is like cane sugar, which is the extract of the sugarcane plant. And then they also give neem leaves, which are very bitter but very healthy. But most people, what do? They remove the neem leaves because they're bitter. They don't want to eat that, and they eat only the jaggery. So Appa says, there are a lot of people in this world who want to do that, who want only good experiences, only pleasure, only joy. So what do you feel when you reflect deeply on all this? So he's asking us, just don't live life, getting up, going to work, doing your errands, taking care of your family, and doing some things to entertain yourself. Start reflecting on life. Start seeing what life has to offer and understand why we are here. So he says life is not something that will go only in the direction we want, because we have set into motion what is going to happen to us in the future through our life of past life karmas, which could be both good or bad. So all those things are going to be like seeds that have been scattered in the plow of a life, or on the field of a life. And in the correct circumstances, when there is the light, sunlight and rain, or in this case circumstances are conducive for that seed of karma to germinate, that is when we are going to experience that fruit of that karma, whether it is good or bad. So at this time, let us reflect. Okay, I cannot change what has already happened in my life or in my past life. But if I am more aware as I go forward in this life, then I will be able to respond correctly and make sure that I do not create more negative karma, and thereby my future lives or my future will be much more pleasanter and happier. And he also says, what is life? Where does one find happiness? Why does sorrow occur? We must clearly understand all this. So reflect on that. What is life? Why were we created? What is the purpose of a life? And that is what this entire series of Agastya Vadipadu is all about. In this, Appa is introducing ourselves to the divinity that is within us. He is putting a mirror and saying, hey, look at yourselves. You're not just Anu, you're not just Sumati, you're divine souls. You just have assumed this form to experience and express. Don't take it all so seriously. Don't go get so involved in this drama of life, because this too shall pass. One day we will, grow old, we will pass, and it'll be like the dream, you wake up and there's nothing anymore. And then, wake up in your after death state and you think, oh, it happened. It is okay, because the next, dream is going to happen next until we wake up from the dream, eternal dream. So that is what we need to consider when we are talking about life, and when we listen to Appa's discourses. He says, where does one find happiness? So today we think, okay, if I eat the sweet, I'm happy. What happens if you eat too much sweet? You're only going to get diseases connected with that. Or if this food is good, you can only eat it to the extent your stomach can take it. If you eat more, what does happen? Your stomach gets upset. So the best thing is to understand that eternal happiness does not lie in material things and physical things. It is a state of mind. So how is that state of mind? How do we develop that state of mind where we are eternally peaceful, like Buddha? And that is one of the reasons why Buddha is so very, very, very famous or popular in every household all over the world, whether they're Christians or anything else, because there is that peace in his face that we can see, that we want innately within us. And how do we gain that peace? Not through material happiness, not through sensual pleasures, but being neutral, in the sense Say, for example, you have been given some material, and for some reason it either breaks or you lose it. If you're able to remain neutral when that happens, oh, okay, I had it for a while, I enjoyed it, it's gone, let it go. But if you feel bad about it and you think about it and you carry that burden through years and years of your life, what are you carrying? Pain. What is the pain created by, or who is it created by? You. Because nobody's asking you to carry that pain with you, but you are carrying it because you want to. Because you think by ruminating on that pain over and over again, what is it going to give you? Nothing. So if something did not happen like it should have happened in your past, let it go. There is no point in trying to think about it, blaming anybody else, blaming yourself. There is absolutely no point. Let it go. Move on. Take all that burden of pain that you have about some incident or something that it shouldn't have happened the way it shouldn't, it should have happened. Put it in a bundle, place it in Appa's feet and say, I don't need this anymore. You take care of it. Free me from this burden so I can go ahead free of all this and start creating a better life for myself. What is going to happen if you think about all this over and over again? Nothing other than you create pain for yourself, you create pain for everybody around you. And if you think about it, if something happened in your life that caused you pain, you are the one responsible, not everybody else. Because remember, the karmic seed was sown by you. Everybody else and all the circumstances that happened to create that was because it was brought to you magnetically to let that karmic seed grow and germinate and become a plant or a tree, depending on how you let it grow. So don't let that little seed that germinated grow and become a big tree, like, and bear a lot of rotten fruit, because that is what you're creating when you're thinking about all the past incidents and blaming people and blaming yourself. Nothing would have changed. If you think that, okay, if things had happened differently, my life would have been different. No. That is why, because of karma, your karma determined that you had to go through that experience. So stop thinking about why it happened, how it could have changed what it happened, but think about why it happened, what can I do, or what have I learned from it, and go forward with this. So that is what he means when he says, why does sorrow occur? Sorrow occurs because of you, your attitude. When somebody even does something or says something to you, start thinking, what can I change in myself? If this is because of what I did, and even if I don't remember what I did that caused this, let me change this so that when I react to that person, I react with forgiveness and understanding, and let the person go. Cut that karmic tie between you and the person who's hurting you. How can you cut the karmic tie? Not by creating more karmic ties by fighting with them, getting angry with them. Even thoughts can create karmic ties. Cut the karmic ties by forgiving them, understanding what has happened because of you. If possible, get away from that person. If you cannot, then understand that maybe that karmic tie has to be completely unraveled, which means no matter what the person does, you be like a mother, whether you're a male or a female, who, a mother who will forgive her child no matter what happens. Look at that soul as your child and then let it all go. So this is what Appa means when he says we must clearly understand all this. So if anybody has some thoughts today, we will continue. Otherwise, we are going to continue the next session. So Sister Sumati, any thoughts? Sister Geeta, Veena, Brother Ramesh? Okay. So what we will do is we will end this session with a Arati song or a salutation to Sage Agastya, which I composed and which I feel also talks about everything that Appa Agastya is. Sri Agastya Mantra. Om Vedanta Purusha Gnana Gunashekara Vande 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 Gnanapalaka Om Dharmapalaka Dharmarakshaka Om Shri Agastya Mahamuni Vande Sharanam Sharanam Sharanam